I believe that a lot of the determination that I developed and the self-confidence came out of those years when I couldn't speak English and the kids would laugh and I would go home crying. I think all of that happens to you in life, and you're able to overcome the challenges and see a path ahead, doesn't come on your own. It comes with people in a big tent who are willing to help you. I leaned into the opportunities that I saw, but things could have gone very differently. I had a child at a young age. I could have been a statistic. And I think Latinas in particular, because of the cultures we come from, have an easier time transferring a lot of those skills into business appropriate skills that help to build those cohesive, high-performing teams.
Hi, Money Movers. Welcome to another episode of Her Money Moves. And I'm thrilled to welcome Miriam Hernandez-Kakol, transformational global business and thought leader, board director, and retired KPMG partner. She serves as the vice chair of HITEC, which we are here in Houston, Texas, at the HITEC Spring Leadership Summit. And with more than 20 years of experience architecting technology-enabled programs at Fortune 100 companies, Miriam is an authentic leader and passionate champion of diversity, inclusion, and equity, and a dedicated mentor to the next generation of leaders. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you?
Wonderful.
It's lovely to see you, especially in all that bright yellow.
Thank you.
I love yellow.
Well, and you're Miss Fashionista, looking amazing in that Dolce & Gabbana.
I like my fashion. I have to say it's my weakness.
You've been a powerhouse in technology. How did your journey begin, and how did you get into tech?
It's such an interesting story for me because that wasn't my plan early on. So I'm a 9-year-old immigrant, meaning I came to the United States at 9 years old with my mother and my sister. Unexpected, my mother packed us on a train in Guadalajara, and we said, "Where are we going?" She says, "Never mind." Next thing we knew, we were in Laredo, Texas, and it was 110 degrees, and we were waiting to pass immigration. So we then got on a bus and went to Kansas City, Missouri, and voila, there we were. And I went to an all-girls Catholic school. That's where my mother could find to put us while she worked 2 and 3 jobs to support us. And I got a great education, and somewhere about 3 years in, I said, I think I can be president of the United States. And Sister Janet Helen, who was my teacher at the time, said to me, "Not so much. First, you have to become a citizen, and then you're going to be a naturalized citizen, and naturalized citizens can't be president." So I was so disappointed, but as a young 11-year-old, 12-year-old, I thought I could be president of the United States. Well, we still don't have a woman who's president, and definitely not a Latina who's president. But anyway, I thought that maybe I'd become a lawyer because I always seemed to win the arguments with my mother, with the nuns. But my career into technology really happened when I went to work at the phone company as an intern. And they put me into a management development program. And one of the areas I had to go into was what they called the switching center, which is where all the stuff used to happen, where the calls are transferred between you and the next person, et cetera. Of course, now it's all digital. Mm-hmm. And I kind of took a liking to it. I then went on and advanced to other things, and I was in a sales position. And they said, "Hey, there's an opening in New Jersey at Bell Communications Research," which had just spun off from Bell Labs, so I'm going back quite a bit. "And we think you'd be a great candidate to go do a 2-year assignment there." And it was sort of a way to punch my ticket to the next promotion to director. So I said, Kansas City, Los Angeles, New Jersey, kind of interesting. Well, let me go check it out. I was a single mom of 2.
I'm also a single mom of 2.
Are you? Well, I'm not anymore. I now have a husband of 30-some years, but that's still later in the story. So I did go to Bell Communications Research and applied and interviewed, and I was one of 29 candidates. And I came back, and my mom said at the time, well, what do you think? And I said, I'm not going to get it. There's 28 other people. I don't have a technical degree. I'm not a technical person. So I worked in the phone company in the switching center, but that was just one of my many sort of stops, right, on my management tour. And lo and behold, I got the job. So I ended up in New Jersey. There's a whole lot about that. And when I was there about 4 months, I met my current husband. And when it was time for me to go, and we started dating, and our sons got to be very good friends. And when it was time for me to go back, he proposed. And I had a job to go back to. And I got to thinking about it, and I thought, you know what? A good job's actually easier to find than a good man.
And a good man? Isn't that the truth?
So you got to give this guy...
That was a good decision.
Yes. And I said to myself, any man who fights to have custody of his son and is raising his son as a single father is amazing to me. And so I turned down to go back to California to the phone company and decided to stay at Bell Communications Research. Of course, I didn't even know if I had a job there. Well, it turns out they gave me a job, but said I had to go to Carnegie Mellon to get a degree in some kind of technology. So they sent me to a very specialized 14-month master's program at Carnegie Mellon. And lo and behold, my technology life started. Because what I was doing at Bellcore was not really technical work. I was more project managing the rollout of technology, which, by the way, became sort of my ticket to fame later in life. So that's how that path started. And while I was at Bellcore, Bell Communications Research, I got to know all the scientists and all the applied research people because I was managing the introduction of these cool things they were developing, like speech recognition, imagine, into the marketplace. And I was program managing the introduction of it between the labs and the actual telephone companies in the field.
Wow, that's so fascinating.
It was like a total turn. Like I say to my husband all the time, I wouldn't have gone down this path because the job they were offering me to go back to in California was pretty exciting, but it was much more operational, running a business, which I did end up running at Bell Communications Research. Eventually, I stayed there for a few years, and I ended up running a business there, but all based in technology.
Wow. And then what came after that?
Well, KPMG came calling. KPMG wanted to strengthen their technical implementation consulting business, and they were doing a lot of work in the telephone companies themselves, especially in the wireless companies. And I had done I had a wireless engineering team at one point that did the standards for wireless, PCS in the United States, as it was called then. So I had a lot of interesting pieces to the puzzle. And KPMG came calling and said, hey, are you interested in coming and being a direct entry partner into KPMG? I'm like, what is KPMG and what is consulting? And so that's what happened. And it was really through another friend of mine who also worked at Bell Communications Research. She had gotten to know KPMG and she gave them my name. So they came calling and I went to KPMG eventually to do consulting. I had no idea what consulting was, but I knew how to advise clients, particularly in the telecom industry, about the technology that they needed.
Amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about some of your early experiences that helped shape you, shaped your professional identity?
I have to go back to when I was really this new kid in Kansas City, Missouri, didn't speak any English, because I believe that a lot of the determination that I developed and the self-confidence came out of those years when I couldn't speak English. The kids would laugh at me when I read a story out loud because my accent, simple things like the word come, C-O-M-E. Well, in Spanish, you would say come. So I would read out loud and I would pronounce all these syllables and letters. And the kids would laugh and I would go home crying. Or they would make fun of the fact that we had pierced ears, my sister and I. Of course, that was 10 years later, they were suddenly so popular, or they would ask me stupid
We
questions.
always get them as a baby.
I know. When I was born, they boom, boom. It was like the same as cutting the umbilical cord, right? So, I think my third, fourth, almost fifth grade, I was kind of like, I'm going to be better than this. No one's going to laugh at me. It's kind of like in that movie, no one's putting baby in the corner. Sometimes I go back and I didn't feel it then consciously, but I go back and I think about, I think a lot of my determination goes back to that point in time. And then watching my mother struggle, get very sick. We ended up staying at the convent, just seeing how hard life can be. And then realizing that the nuns and my mother and people she worked with, it's like she gathered a village to help raise us. So I think that gave me a lot of perspective about a big tent, that you need a lot of people around you in order to really succeed at whatever you're trying to do, whether it's be a single mom and raise your kids or make sure you're not sick. I just learned a lot by watching all of that. So I go back to that period of time. So it created a determination in me that I wasn't going to be laughed at or ridiculed. And I was very lucky because then opportunities started opening up to me, right? And, going to work at the phone company and then ending up being an intern there, and then ending up being part of management, then ending up at Bell Communications Research when I didn't feel I was qualified for that job, but they offered it to me. All those things were steps where I took risks. I leaned into the opportunities that I saw, but things could have gone very differently. I had a child at a young age. I could have been a statistic. I say that to myself all the time. I had my son when I was 16.
I had my son when I was 17.
And it's a very little known fact, by the way. I for many years, didn't even talk about it. And people think I'm much younger than I am.
Always you look so good.
Well, one tries. So, it changed the way I went to college. It changed the way I ended up going to work. But I made a decision that I was going to keep my son and that I was going to raise him. And I'm glad I did, because now I have 2 beautiful granddaughters that he gave me, among others. But I have 6 of them, but my 2 oldest are his daughters. So I think all of that happens to you in life, and you're able to overcome the challenges and see a path ahead, doesn't come on your own. It comes with, like I said, people in a big tent who are willing to help you. Whether it was the nun, Sister Janet Helen, probably my very first mentor ever, who told me I could do anything I wanted, or my own mother whose shoulders I stood on. Or, countless, my divorce attorney who said, you're too good for this. You need to go. You could do anything you want, Miriam. Like, just push yourself. All of these people who were advocating for me and mentoring me, I am very deeply committed to giving that back and doing that myself. Because there are many people like us who no one opens that door of opportunity for them. I want to be able to do that.
Yes.
When I started tearing up is realizing yet again I'm 71 years old. Jesus, I remember all these things. But thinking back to how I could have been a statistic. Had someone's, many people not seen something in me, not encouraged me, not pushed me, not opened a door, not given me an opportunity, I could have been a statistic. I could have been one more young girl. My goodness, Latinas, how they have babies. That would have gone nowhere and might have not been a very good mother and might have chosen other options than
You
what I
wouldn't be
did
where you are today.
than to be where I am today. And that's what I was saying to you earlier is there are so many young people that have the talent, that have the intelligence, that have the know-how, that have gifts about themselves, but no one is encouraging them, no one is seeing them, no one is opening doors for them. And therefore, and let's just face it, it's twice as hard when, you're an immigrant, you're Latina, you don't speak the language. I mean, let's just go. And there's not that opportunity being presented. And then you do end up sometimes being a statistic, because your parents' love and your parents' support, that's all really, really good. But at a certain point when you have to stand on your own 2 feet, if you don't see where to go, how to get yourself into a better place, I'm just very blessed. I think my mother's sacrifice also to put us in this very exclusive girls' school, where literally we were the poorest kids in that school, was also very important because I saw how young girls who became my friends lived, and it was so completely different than the way I lived. And some of them are still my very good friends today.
Wow, it's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that.
That's why when people ask me to mentor
Mm-hmm.
or my commitment to high tech, or, when I tutored when I was in high school, I would go across town and tutor. It's all because, gosh, I'm so happy for what people open my eyes to.
Mm-hmm. So, how do you incorporate financial education and empowerment into your leadership and mentorship efforts for women?
That I was probably not great. I was managing financial security for myself and my children when I was single. And I remember exactly what I made when I moved from California to New Jersey and went to work at Bell Communications Research, a spinoff of Bell Labs. I made $41,000. Now, it was in the late 80s, so I don't know what the equivalent, I'm going to have to figure that out, would be. But it was hard. You know what it's like to be a single parent
Mm-hmm.
and to try to feed and clothe and, sports and whatever it is you can do for your kids. So I gave away the right to buy a fancy car or buy Dolce & Gabbana for sure. I would see my friends all buying it, but not me. And I think that I managed credit cards, in a way. I say, okay, well, the kids need school clothes. Okay, I'm going to, put it on this credit card and I'm going to pay it over time. When I met my husband, who comes from a very different background, he asked me to marry him, and we started sort of pooling our resources, our kids. And he saw what my outstanding balances, I mean, I'll just be honest, were on my credit cards. I mean, they weren't more than $10,000 total, but, in the 90s, that was a lot. He said to me, I'm going to pay these bills off for you, but you're never going to charge anything that you can't pay at the end of the month. And I was like, what? Like, do people do that? Like, not on $41,000, they know. It was around that time that I was also not making $41,000. My career was taking off. I went to Carnegie Mellon. The man stayed with my son, my younger son, my husband. My mother came to live and help take care of my 2 kids and his kids, even though by then they were teenagers. So he was such a big help in setting me straight on how do you manage financial security for yourself. But it also helps when you have someone helping you, when you start to have confidence in yourself and your career starts to take off. All those things contributed to getting on a very sound footing, in terms of how do you manage that? So you go from that just simple, hey, how do you pay the bills? Which is kind of funny as a side note, because I was on the Junior Achievement Board for a long time in New Jersey. And they do this financial class for high school kids. And they literally take them into a town and they have to go shopping and they have a budget and they have to figure out how they're going to pay for the groceries and all that. So really teaching financial acumen and budgeting.
Yeah. I just actually volunteered with my daughter's school. They did a Junior Achievement BizTown.
Oh,
And
that's what it is. It's great, isn't it? So I did that for many years as part of Junior Achievement. And I was laughing. I said, geez, they didn't do this at my school. Why? Because I went to a school of a lot of very wealthy kids who didn't have to worry about managing. But anyway, it's I think as my career progressed, and then as I became a partner at KPMG, I was like, okay, I've now got the discipline that I learned from my husband, who, by the way, didn't believe in buying anything if you didn't have the cash to buy it. So we have no mortgages. We have no car payments. Nothing.
Wow.
Yes, it's awesome. I learned that from him. He came from a family who that's how they paid for everything cash. Anyway, and I tell my kids, we tell our 3 boys all the time, you got no college loans. Just that's our gift to you. You have absolutely no college loans.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I think as I started earning more and more money, I realized I needed to learn how to save it beyond just a savings account, how to invest it, and where was I going to place my bets. And now that I've retired from KPMG and pooled all my money from KPMG, from my retirement, from my Bell System retirement, I manage it through a financial advisor, and I'm very diligent about that account. I look at it not every day, but I look at it because the market's going up and down, so I can't look at it every day. But I do make decisions with my financial advisor about what I want to back and where I want to invest. And my husband and I decided a long time ago, he's a much more conservative investor than I am. And that was proven when the whole bubble burst in 1999, 2000. I had a lot of money in tech stock, big believer in tech because that's what I did. And he had a lot of money in real estate, office condos and mutual funds. And so his portfolio pretty much stayed the same. Mine got cut in half. And so that was 99. So we've kept our portfolio separate, which is a good hedging for us because I'm not as I don't take as big a risks anymore since my earning days are pretty much over. As my husband says, we don't have any income. We have outcome now that we're both retired. So I've become more risk averse, but not as much as he is. So we just keep our portfolios different. And we try to think through where do we want to spend money. I can't buy Dolce & Gabbana outfits all the time like I used to when I worked. But I okay, what's going to be my outfit for the spring? I chose this one. So that's how it is. I think that the other thing is when you start running a P&L in your business and you have to make business decisions. I started running a P&L back before I went to KPMG when I was at Bell Communications Research. I ran one of the business units that provided certain software to the telcos. So I was responsible for those results. And then at KPMG, I've ran several businesses. And so understanding the contribution to the partnership, understanding the P&L, understanding how price out contracts to our clients, et cetera, I think teaches you a lot of discipline. And then being around a bunch of accountants at KPMG, you can't help but to think about the risk that's inherent in your cash flow, that's inherent in your investment portfolio. So I've been blessed that way too, that just through my different business roles, I've been able to really appreciate different ways to manage my personal funds.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And what advice would you offer to young women who aspire to be a partner at companies like KPMG?
I know that there are 3 really key principles that I believe in. And the first one really has to do with confidence and courage and risk taking. So it's all about you as an individual and having the confidence in yourself and your abilities so that you don't doubt whether you belong at the table, regardless of what that table is, because each individual's ambitions and dreams are different. But to know that you can develop and learn the skills that you need to get to that table. And then when you're at that table, not fearing that you can move ahead, that you can achieve your ambitions, goes a long ways. And it's hard. Listen, I'm making it sound like, oh, it's just a mindset. It's not. It's hard. Especially look, I was the only woman in the room, much less the only Latino in the room for a long time. And having men always mansplaining to you, which wasn't a term back then, but always acting like you don't understand, or, well, you don't have the experience, or, oh, you're talking so loud. You're so passionate about this. I used to get that all the time. Don't be so loud and passionate. Just having all of that going on is hard. But I don't believe that the idea is wrong. The idea of having confidence in what you can do and what you bring to the table and going with that. Now, maybe if I said, gee, I think I want to be the best golfer, female golfer ever, I might have to stop and say, yeah, probably not. It's a little late now to do that. However, I think that when you set your goals early, and sometimes your goals change, right? You don't necessarily know all your goals when you're 15. I didn't. Some of my career just happened because I took the next job and the next job. And pretty soon I know I'm at Carnegie Mellon, right? So I think that number one is that confidence, that belief in yourself, that taking risks. That would be one thing I would give as advice. The second one is really about having people around you that are stronger than you and can speak the truth to you. People who you can trust, people who know things that you don't know. You need to have those type of people, both personally, but also professionally. I always found that building teams of people, whether I wanted to be friends with them or not, although a lot of times my teams, we ended up being very close. And I'll talk about that. But having people around you who fill the gaps that you have, especially in a professional setting, wow, that's so powerful. And sometimes it's intimidating because all of a sudden you're not the smartest person in the room on a topic or on a number of topics.
But you don't want to be the smartest person
no,
in the room.
I don't want to be.
Right?
That's scary. So having a team and people around you, both in your personal life, but even more important in your professional life, that can fill those gaps for you and that you can trust and they can trust you, I think that's so important. So important. You need those truth tellers around you, and you need people who are better than you at certain things. My sister is much more nurturing than I am, much more nurturing. way over the top nurturing. It's good to have her around when you
Oh,
get your
yeah.
knee replaced. It's good to have her around when you have little grandkids and you're like, oh, they're crying all night. And she's like, oh, I'll walk with them all night. I'm like, good, okay, I'm going to sleep. So sometimes you just need people who are better or stronger at something than you are. And then this idea of giving back, I'm like so committed to that. And it's not just because I feel the responsibility. I get so much back from that. It sort of fills my soul, right? With the idea that, okay, I don't always do this really well. I don't always commit to all the things I should. I think I do a pretty good bit of trying to be there for people who need me, people who call me and say, hey, can you talk to my daughter? She's really having a hard time figuring out what to do with her career. Hey, can you take my son? Oh my God, he wants to stay at college and go a fifth year. Can you give him advice? Or people who say, hey, we're trying to raise money because we have these girls who can't go into this program. All those things are just so important for me to understand that I want to help other young people not be statistics.
I just recently spoke to 100 middle school students about how education transforms lives and, encouraging and inspiring them to dream bigger and, shared my whole journey. And I mean, I'm still on cloud nine. And this was last week of just feeling, my heart is just so full from some of the girls coming to me and they're saying, thank you so much. I could listen to you all day. You've inspired me so much. My mom is also a single mom and my dad's an alcoholic. And it just, really helped encourage me to hear your story that I can do it too.
Yeah. Well, just today, after I talked this morning, we had Rosa and me and Omar do the introduction. Two women I had not met came up to me in the hallway and they said, you were so inspirational. You said some things that had to be said, and I feel encouraged by them. Or when I retired from KPMG and having young women who met me at an ERG meeting or who saw me speak, sending me notes saying, you were such an inspiration in my life. You don't even know how much I looked up to you. And you're just like, wow, really? I'm not that good. I'm not that good.
That's incredible. And that is a true gift.
Well, and I think if you take the personal, the family, those feelings that you have about you need a big tent to raise your family, you need a big tent to be successful in your career, and you take some of those personal attributes and you translate them into your leadership style, I think it makes a huge difference. I think that's why women many times are stronger, at leading teams and making teams come together or creating teams that are cohesive and will walk through fire together.
Yes.
Because we have an easier time, and I don't want to generalize, and I think Latinas in particular, because of the cultures we come from, have an easier time transferring a lot of those skills into business appropriate skills that help to build those cohesive, high-performing teams. I really do believe that.
And so I always love to ask each guest, what are you dreaming bigger about next?
I really got to get my golf game down to single digits. I know I'm not going to be the best female golfer ever, but I have to. I could not. In fact, my husband laughed. He said, do you know that you have to play 22 rounds at our golf club this summer for the money that it costs for you to play pays off? And I said, I'm going to play. And he goes, and you need to, he's a very good golfer. You need to practice or you're not going to get better. Then you get frustrated. So I am going to I need to get it down to low double digits, like low teens. That's kind of what I'm thinking bigger about right now. It's kind of trivial, but it's on my bucket list.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here with us. I really enjoyed connecting with you.
Yeah,
and
I'm sorry
your
my
beautiful
story was so personal, but you
Oh my
asked questions
gosh.
that made me like,
No, that's what it's so engaging, and I appreciate you sharing. And, like I had no idea we have so much in common. It was
yeah.
beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Anyway, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.